Good morning everybody, welcome to another running video. It's Monday, I think it's the 28th of October 2025. It's about 6:30 in the morning and I'm off on my run. Today I'm going to talk about Ruth Chepngetich. Again, you might say, and no, I'm not obsessed with her and I'm not stalking her or anything like that, just that she's been in the news again recently, or in the news in the running world anyway, again recently, because she has been now officially banned for 3 years for using a banned substance. And so I thought I'd talk a bit about that. Now, for those who don't know or can't remember, a quick recap. Ruth Chepngetich is a Kenyan marathon runner who in 2024 ran the Chicago Marathon in 2 hours 9 minutes 56. Now the significance of that is that in doing so, she set a world record for the first female to run a marathon in under 2 hours and 10 minutes. And there were people at the time who said it couldn't be done, that record should not have been broken, at least not yet, and their conclusion was that she must have cheated, and by cheating they meant she must have taken an illegal substance of some sort. And in fact, at the post-race press conference, that was the first question asked her: what did you take? Now, I, at the time, made a couple of videos where I defended her, and I did that not on the basis that I know her or have any personal interest in her or anything like that, but simply on the basis that at the time of the event and in the period afterwards, before the result was ratified and the record recognised, there was no evidence produced by anybody to say, here's the proof that she cheated. What I mean by that, what do I mean by evidence? Well, there was no serious looking scientist in a lab coat saying, here's the proof, here's the analysis of her samples, this is what she took, this is how much of it she took. See the kangaroo in front of me, and this is incontrovertible proof that she took a banned substance. There were no officials in suits saying, well, here's the proof, and because of that, this is the penalty. So there's simply no evidence to say that she had done anything other than run the race and perform on the day to the level that gave her that record. Claims about wearing magic shoes are nonsense, because every one of the top 10 finishers, male and female, also wore magic shoes. Claims that she had paces. She did, but it's not a case of you just turn up at the event and say, and I'm here and I've got a couple of mates and they're going to run too. I assume the paces were approved by the organisers and by the international body that sanctions and certifies these events. So we move forward to early 2025, I think March, maybe April. Chepngetich withdrew from the London Marathon. She ran a 10k event in Portugal and was tested afterwards and tested positive to a banned substance which is called HZT, or it might be HTZ. Whatever it is, it's on the list of banned substances, and her samples showed that she had taken it. Initially she declined to cooperate with the investigation, and then after a period of reflection, or maybe somebody a bit wiser than her in the camp said to her, "They got you dead to rights here. If you cooperate, it will go better than if you don't." So she decides to cooperate, and she tells the authorities that yes, she did in fact take something, and that would explain the test results. The explanation she gave was that she was having a medical episode where she felt dizzy, overheated I think, and was having palpitations, so she took something. Now she says that her housemaid had been prescribed medication for similar symptoms, so she asked the housemaid for some of her medication and she took a capsule. Now according to some sources, the medication she took stated on the foil pack that it contained this banned substance. Now, I don't know anything about Kenyan culture or anything like that, but it is pretty well an accepted thing, at least in the Western world and in Australia, that you don't take medication that's not prescribed for you. If you buy something over the counter for a headache or a cold or something like that, that's one thing. And if a doctor has prescribed a particular medication for a person for a set of symptoms, somebody else ought not to take that medication because it is prescribed to that person for those specific symptoms. Chepngetich might claim that she did not know that the substance in question was a banned substance. And again, to say I don't know anything about Kenyan culture, and I don't know what they do in regard to educating their runners about such things, but as a runner at an elite level, and if you're the world record holder, you are running at an elite level, you are required to know what is or isn't banned. And if you don't know, you're expected to find out. And I would assume that in Kenya there's a body that you can consult, a 1-800 number you can call and say, you know, a doctor's prescribed this for me, is it okay if I use it? Or I'm feeling a bit crook, I got this thing from the chemist and I'm about to take it, is it okay? You're also bound by the fact that you are responsible for what you take and what you put in your body, whether it's food, additives, supplements, or medication. And as I said, as an elite runner, she ought to know that, and probably does. Now, the issues with the substance in question and her explanation are these. The first instance, as I said, you don't take medication not prescribed for you, especially if you're an elite runner. As I understand it from some of the commentary, the reading that her samples produced was 2,800 times the allowable level of that substance. The protocol is that if in the testing they get a result of 50 nanograms per sample or something, that's permissible. 2,800 times that doesn't seem to be, and clearly isn't, by the fact that she's been banned, a permissible level. So the bottom line of all this is she's now been banned for 3 years. Would have been 4 except that she owned up at the last minute. She's no longer eligible to compete at the World Championships in, I believe, 2027, and can't be considered for selection for the 2028 Olympics either. So she's missed some pretty serious competition. She's in her 30s, so the question of whether she'll be able to come back from this setback or this ban and compete at the highest levels again after the ban is one that is the subject of some speculation. Now, there are people who are saying, oh, she's been banned for 3 years. The record that is in her name at the moment should be expunged. and she should be made to pay back the prize money that she earned from the Chicago Marathon in 2024. And as I said earlier, I don't know this woman. I've never met her. I'd never even heard of her until last year after the Chicago Marathon. But there is a question of evidence. The argument that, well, she cheated in Portugal, so she must have cheated before, isn't evidence. It might be your feeling, but feelings are not things that we should convict, for want of a better word, and punish people for. We should, in this case, base any decision on evidence. So that would require that her samples from Chicago were tested, that the results of those tests were made public, and that there were things there that were sufficient to say this is not right. Here's the proof. Yes, the record is expunged and you have to pay back the prize money. She does have, as I understand things, the right of appeal this suspension to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. And there's a court like any other court where there are judges who make a final decision that establishes case law and precedent. There are lawyers who act for the prosecutors, that is the Athletics Integrity Unit. There are lawyers who act for her, who defend her and say whatever it is they say in their appeal. So if she were to appeal, it would go to a court, and they do require evidence. That does, if those who say, well, she cheated before, so she must have cheated, or she cheated here, so she must have cheated there. If there is any truth to their claims, then it does raise some questions. Question number one is, if she cheated in Portugal in 2025 and was caught with a huge reading of the banned substance, why did she do that if she had used a substance at Chicago in 2024 and it wasn't detected? Why would she not have just stuck with the substance that got her the record and the win? And in their eyes, she got away with cheating. But a second question is, if she did in fact cheat at the Chicago 24 marathon and got away with it, did she take such a small amount of whatever it was that it simply couldn't be detected, and that's why she got away with it? And if that's the case, did it in fact have any impact on her performance, or is whatever she took a currently undetectable substance? And I also feel that it does, if that's the case, if the people saying, well, she cheated once, so she must have cheated before, and whilst we don't have the evidence and we can't prove it, we know it in our hearts, and we think she should be stripped of the record and made to give the prize money back. What does that say about the testing protocols used by the organisers of the Chicago event? Now again, I don't have any evidence to suggest that they're not of the highest standards, and I'm not suggesting that they are, but I'm saying if these claims of cheating have any substance at all, and she's to be punished without evidence and made to hand back the money and have the record taken away from her, then is there a concern about the doping controls that are used in Chicago? It's important to know here that the Chicago Marathon is one of the 6 or 7 majors now, including Sydney. It is a marathon that is used for gaining points for international ranking. It is a marathon where the qualifying time can be used qualifying for the World Championships and the Olympics. So it's not your average fun run. It's a high profile event. And so you want to believe that the testing procedures are at the highest level, that there are procedures in place to guarantee the chain of evidence from the collection of the sample from the athlete to the transportation of the sample to the laboratory, to the testing of the sample, to the releasing the results, and all of that happening again if it's necessary to test the B sample. As I said, I'm not suggesting, and I don't have any evidence to say that that isn't the case, but if it is the case that Chepngetich cheated and she's made to hand back the money and have the result and the record expunged, then there needs to be evidence, and at the very least the people who run, organise and sanction the Chicago event should have a good hard look at their procedures in regard to collecting samples and testing them to say, well, we're up to international standard. We did everything we should have done at the highest possible standard, and either she used something in such a small dose that it couldn't be detected, or she used a currently undetectable substance, in which case you have to say, well, since we can't find the evidence, and whilst we suspect that she might have done one of those two things, we have to let the record stand. Now, why does any of this matter, I suppose, is a good question. And it matters for this reason. If you are a person who runs in these marathons, whether as an elite runner or just somebody who runs because they want to run, you want to think that when you look in your corral, or when you look across the start line at all the other names, faces that you know their names because they run in every event that you run in, you want to think, well, at the end of this race, I want to be sure and satisfied that the result is because so-and-so who won was a better runner. Not that they had a better chemist, and not that they had a better pharmacist who could concoct a substance that's undetectable, but which gives them an edge that you don't have. You can say their edge is they're just a better runner, and you accept that. Despite all your training, nutrition and everything else that you've done, the person who won is just better on the day. But you, as a participant, want to satisfy yourself that when you walk away afterwards with your medal and the winners displaying their medal, the photographers and the television stations and whomever, that they earned it the old-fashioned way, that is through being the best and running the best event, not because they had a better chemist. As a spectator, fan, supporter, or whatever, you buy the merchandise, you stand out on the course somewhere for a couple of hours, get there in plenty of time so you can get close to the barrier and see the runners as they go past and see your favourite or your fan, the one that you support, either from your country or whatever the reason you support that person, and you see them go past, and it might be a matter of 30 seconds or a minute that you see them in a 2, 3, 4, 5 or even longer hour event, but you did all that because you're a fan of them and you're a fan of the event, and you want to think that if your person that you're a fan of won, they won fairly, they won cleanly. You want to think that if the person you supported came second or third or 433rd or 1033rd or whatever it was, that the result was fair and true for everybody from the first finisher to the last finisher. And the bottom line with Chepngetich is that she's been banned now for 3 years, and quite likely that'll be the end of her running career. There are some that say people in Kenya, or the running community, for want of a better word, in Kenya have a doping problem. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm saying I don't know. There do seem to be a lot of runners from Kenya who are testing positive to banned substances, or pulling Swifties with their medical passports and so on. And perhaps they need to clean their act up. But in the case of Chepngetich, if, and it appears incontrovertible now that she did take this banned substance before the Portugal event, she even said she took it. Her excuse is not, it's an explanation, not an excuse. And as a consequence, she's been banned, as she rightly should be. But calls that she should be forced to give back things that happened before that event, for which there is no evidence to suggest that she did anything untoward, seemed to be, I don't want to say sour grapes, but it seemed to be a case of people who feel they've been let down, somebody's done what they didn't think they should have done or been able to do, and as a consequence, they, that is the fans, the pundits, the critics, the experts, whoever they are, just can't come to grips with it. Alright, that's all I want to say on that subject. If you have a thought, leave it in the comments section. When I become aware of it, I will respond. Always please comment on the content. If you have evidence to suggest that things weren't on the up and up in Chicago in 24, please provide it to the relevant authorities. Don't indulge in conspiracy theories, just provide the evidence. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like or dislike the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to, share the video with other people, enjoy your day, whatever it is you're doing. You're out running, enjoy a run, and I'll catch you when I'm making the next running video, whenever that may be. Thanks for watching.